A show based on the facts, honesty, the man, the myth, the legend, Constitutionalist Joseph M. Leonard.
Welcome to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Leonard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. Really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Constitutionalist Politics Podcast. Wednesday guest drops. Today with me is Xavier. We'll get to him in a second, but I want to do a bit of setup for those who this may be your first show. It's not that I'm a lazy host. Well, yeah, actually, I am kind of lazy, but I don't want to know much about my guests. You know, unlike Savaged Unfiltered, when I am Jokester Joe over there, I prepare and look into the guests. Here, I don't want to know a lot about the guests. I want to know next to nothing. So I discovered them just as you discover them. So let me read. The only thing I know about Xavier is this one sentence. Had a Catholic life upbringing and can definitely share those experiences. Well, two sentences. The next, I am also heavily into politics and have been following along with the current geopolitics. So he fits right in with constitutionalist politics. Now, I also was born and raised Catholic, but like I say, this is not a Catholic show. It's not a Lutheran show, a Presbyterian show, a Baptist show, a whatever your brand or flavor is, because it's about what can we all as Christians come together on in agreement, because if we argue as different sects, that's S-E-C-T-S, not S-E-X, right? Of course, for the benefit of the transcript, to get that right. If we argue, Satan wins, not Christ. So with that, welcome to the show, Xavier. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Is that a Razer headset?
It's a headset I've had since I was like a freshman in high school, so it's the only way. It's the only way I could talk to you. So yeah,
yeah. I use a Razer gamer headset.
Yep.
It's about the best I could find without spending $1,000.
Yeah.
I'm on disability. I don't have that kind of money for just a headset to do a show. But at any rate, that's already a rabbit hole not worthy of going down that we've kind of done already.
Yep.
So first, where were you born and raised, and where are you now? That kind of background stuff.
Well, I was born in Chicago. Downtown side of Chicago.
Not Bulls territory.
Oh yeah, Bulls territory. Pretty close, actually. Pretty close to where the Bulls play. But yeah, I was born there. I still live here. So, yeah, I live. Actually, yeah, when you mentioned the Bulls, I live pretty close to the Bulls where they are. So yeah, but yeah, been here in Chicago the whole time. Lived here my whole life. I barely travel. So yeah.
I've been to half of our 50 states.
Okay.
But I'm born and raised in Southeast Michigan, a southern suburb, downriver, we call it, of Detroit. Yeah, I'm born and raised here. And although I hate the winters, I choose to stay, so I've been other places, but like you, hey, this is where I was born. This is where I was raised.
Yeah.
People, you got your friends, you got your family and all that. So moving is an upheaval. So like me, you decided, hey, I'm staying here.
Well, yeah, I'm still pretty young. I'm only 18 years old. So I mean,
Oh,
I
I
definitely
didn't
plan
know
on.
you were. I didn't
Yeah,
realize you were that. I thought you
yeah, I'm
were
pretty.
in your mid-20s. I didn't realize you were only 18.
Yeah. So yeah, but
That's
I
cool.
definitely do want to move though, for sure.
Oh, do you?
I would
I
want
would
to.
love to be able to move to Vegas. I love,
Yeah.
although people have this misnomer, the desert gets cold at night, people.
Yeah, it does
It's
indeed.
not
But
100 degrees all the time, but
hmm
it's still better than being here in Michigan. So
yeah.
I'd love to move, but no, I stay, especially now that I'm 62, old, set in my ways. I'm staying here. I'm not going. But yeah, so it's great me not knowing you're only 18. This is a
Yeah.
great, another show I've had Huck, who was just turning 18. I had Christopher Stephen Armstrong on, who's also in his low 20s. So this is great. Another meeting of the Zoomers to Boomers generation discussion.
Yeah. Sounds great. Awesome.
So, not to pick on you, but since you have very little life experience, it's
hmm
just a joke, people. He could have gone through a heck of a lot in his 18 years that I never did in my 62 years. So I'm not passing a judgment. It's just a joke. We as generations have to better communicate and come together and have meetings of the mind. So I really appreciate you being here. And well, what was kind of your motivation for reaching out to the Constitutionalist Politics show?
I don't know. It was super interesting. I watched a little bit, or I listened to a little bit of what you already had. It just seemed really interesting. You yourself seem really interesting. You look like you're out there, a little extroverted, you know. That sounds
Yeah.
awesome. It seems like it would be super interesting to talk to you and just learn a little bit.
Yeah, well, I pride myself in this not being the traditional. I wrote a book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. It is a Christian book, but on terrorism. So obviously, it's not your normal, fluffy, traditional kind of Christian book. And I try to pride myself in this show also not being the proverbial, oh, beat people over the head with the Bible. Oh, uptight Christian, right?
Yep.
Yeah, got to break that stereotype. So I appreciate what you said there. And let's do that rabbit hole. Like fellow Christians you run into, again, being Catholic, do you run into that divide of a Lutheran? And my grandfather was Lutheran. He became Catholic to marry my grandmother. But that divide, you run into a Baptist who I like to say, hey, with all the twerking and all that crap going on, called dance now,
Yep.
they were kind of right in the Footloose movie about the whole dancing is pre-sex kind of thing, right? But we've got to come together on things we can agree with rather than things that divide. And how many people, fellow Christians, do you run into that are indeed uptight and, my version of the Bible says X, yours says it Y. They're saying the same things, but yet they insist on arguing.
Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, right now, a lot of people I hang out, I would argue they're more atheist kind. I would say that,
Secular, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would argue they're more, they don't, it's kind of just like up there. They don't really think about it that much for like religion purposes. People I do run into that are heavily into the religion are mainly Muslim. And I don't really know much about the religion, so I couldn't explain, but I'm not really super um keen, like even myself, just I guess if I would consider myself Catholic, I don't even know much about the Bible myself. I know my dad was super into it. He would read all the time. He would tell me about certain scriptures and stuff like that. But even me myself, like I've let it hasn't been heavily, especially later in my life, it hasn't been heavily been instilled in me. So especially when I stopped. Because the reason I even got brought into Catholicism was my mom putting me into Saturday classes. So I would just come in like an hour and a half every Saturday, and eventually I got confirmed. And ever since then, I mean, I've barely gone to church. It's just kind of fell off from there. So it's been a
Yeah, well, I'm
different
glad you
story.
said that, because a building that happens to have a steeple on it doesn't really make it a church of God. There's a whole lot of wokest, worldly churches that are just humanist clubs now. So I
Mhm.
see that a lot with, indeed, the younger generation I run into. They've had some Christian background in some form, and it's indeed formed and shaped their lives, but they consider themselves more spiritual rather than wanting to cling to a title or a label attached to them. That's kind of you, and you see that among your peers then.
Yeah, for sure. I will say I agree with you when you say it's become more of like a human club kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of like I've heard a lot of people talk about like, oh, like a woman becoming a priest is not something that like sticks to traditionalism, or like asking for donations in a church if money is the root of all evil kind of thing. I've heard these kind
Oh,
definitely heard
I
those
am
kind of
so
things.
glad you said that, because I had a conversation with a 22-year-old just the other day about that. The Bible doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It
Hmm.
says the love of money is the root of evil. It's
Hmm.
the greed, it's the
Yeah.
sloth, it's the hubris that are the sins. Money is a needed tool in
Yep.
society, but craving only that, and you're right, I say it all the time, a lot of the churches have only also become about money laundering,
Hmm.
keeping, say anything from the pulpit, whether it's biblical or not, to keep fannies in the pew and the dollars coming in.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And I
Yeah.
think that's turning off a lot of younger people who would be Christian otherwise.
I think it's more than that. I just don't think a lot of people, especially just around me, that it's not heavily like regarded upon. A lot of kids my age like to go around and like party and stuff like that. They like to drink, they like to do
Hey, it's part
drugs,
of
whatever.
youth. It's
Yeah.
part of youth. I'm not gonna be here and be a liar and say I didn't do all that when I was young too.
Yeah.
I did, but I also like to say, you know who Penn of Penn and Teller, the magician comedy team, is? No?
Nah.
Okay.
No.
Oh, well, they've got a Vegas act. They've got an
Hmm.
internship in Vegas now. Great. Oh, they're hilarious. They're great magicians. But Penn is a renowned atheist. But
Okay.
unlike a lot of atheists, he's not anti-Christian,
Mm.
right? He recognizes that whether I derive the notion you don't get to kill me and I don't get to kill you from the Bible, or him just saying it's just plain sensible, good, being social,
Hmm.
and I don't get to steal your stuff, you don't get to steal mine. However, you come to it from an atheist standpoint or a Christian standpoint, that's good. So he's an idol of mine, even though he's not Christian. You can be a good moral person without that, again, to use the word label attached. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I remember hearing somewhere that in some experiment there was like I think naturally just as humans we're all born with a moral sense. I remember it was some experiment. It was like they showed videos to babies of just like things that would just like to us as adults would like make us seem sad, or something that's just like, oh, that's horrible, you know? And like babies would start crying after seeing it, and these are like newborns, and it was like a philosophical thing where it's like, oh, we're born with a moral sense, and that's even before you even understand what religion is. So I thought it was definitely interesting.
I'm glad you said that. That's good. Right. It's part of the nature DNA versus nurture argument, because you mentioned philosophy, right? The endless argument of how much of what we are and become is nature and how much is nurture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. There was I think I thought saw a debate. It was just two people debating it, like whether or not God was real, and it was like science. They were putting science in. Can science prove that God is real? Can
No.
like mysteries? Well, yeah, no, it can't. But I
Well,
think that's one of the
we can
arguments.
prove archaeologically, like Pastor Rick, that I know is an archaeologist. We can seek out and prove Sodom and Gomorrah existed. We could seek out and prove the biblical locations that then lend credence to the Bible and therefore God. But science also cannot produce evolution.
Yeah.
It's a macro thing. They can't create primordial soup and all of a sudden a fish pops out. So Darwinism and the theory of evolution is just that, a theory. Science can't prove that either. God can talk about our physics because he created them at the natural laws, but science can't necessarily explain God. God can explain the Big Bang, but atheism to me is a religion. To believe everything miraculously came out of nothingness is as big of a faith and leap of belief as God created it. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm glad you. I was about to mention the Big Bang Theory because I know that it was created in like the 1500s, 1600s by a Catholic priest, I think, which was always like, I mean, it's like a juxtaposition. It's ironic that a Catholic priest, someone who believed in Catholicism, would create would think of the Big Bang Theory, which is now considered like an atheist thing to believe in now.
Okay, but again, not really when you think about it, because again, God spoke it into existence. God created, God caused the Big Bang. So again, God can explain the Big Bang. The Big Bang can't explain God. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's very, you're picking my brain right now.
Well, hey, like I
Yeah.
said, I don't script shows. We just go where the rabbit holes lead. And it's a great opportunity for me to indeed challenge you as a
Yeah.
younger person and get your reactions. And then hopefully all your friends tune into the show and see what hell I put you through. For the benefit of the transcript, that was a joke. We're laughing. Okay.
Yep. Awesome.
And that's the other again, I said, like, I don't want this to be a uptight Bible thumper show. Right?
Yeah.
We've got to keep a sense of humor. We'll all go woohoo, cuckoo, cuckoo, and the Cocoa Puffs, right?
Yep. Yeah, a little too crazy sometimes. Yeah.
So you mentioned partying. Shots of Jack used to be my bad pleasure. What's yours?
I mean, look, for legal reasons, I can't necessarily say it.
Right. Oh, yeah. Is Illinois? Yeah, most states are, right. Yeah, legally now at the laws, the legal drinking age is 21. If you go over to Canada, though, like me being in Detroit, growing up, we always used to go over to Canada because the drinking age was 19 there.
Really?
So, yeah. Or Ohio, we would drive to Ohio. It was legal to sell what was called weak beer. What they would call it and sell it as today is non-alcoholic beer.
Heard of those,
so, hey, you can have as many fake beers as you like.
Yeah, something like that. I think I have to now. Until I turn 21. That's all I can do.
Yeah. For legal reasons, indeed, we don't want you making any admissions that the local law enforcement made and act
Yeah, of
upon.
course. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely not.
But we all know what goes on in dorm rooms.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But now to pull it back to faith, or to pivot to the politics side, because again, this show is called Constitutionalist Politics. Biblical community, free will. We are to want to be our brother's keeper versus leftist communism, which is theft, redistribution, force. Do you, with your Catholic upbringing, have you really thought about that dichotomy of between biblical community and leftist force, theft, communism?
I will say
Put you on the spot again.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I think before I was definitely more left leaning when I was younger. But I think it was just because I live in Chicago. Chicago's a left leaning city. Technically Illinois is a red
Nature
state,
nurture.
but
Nature nurture again. Yep. Peer pressure.
Yeah, it's just kind of I mean, I was younger, so I didn't really care. I was just like, oh, what do everyone else around me believe? But as I grew older, especially like with COVID, I was just the vaccines, the whole mask thing. I hated all of that, and that's what really got me into politics in the first place. I was like, what is going on up there? What are they doing? What are they doing that I have to wear my mask wherever I go, and they want me to put whatever kind of shot in my arm?
Yeah, where's that choice?
Yeah,
right. And
no
these aren't vaccines. They are flu shots. They don't make you immune to anything. A vaccine is mumps, measles, polio. They make 99.9% of people who get the vaccine immune.
Yeah.
Big difference there, right?
Yeah.
And you recognize that.
Yeah, I didn't get my I did get a vaccine. I only got one. I never got like a booster shot or anything. But that was just so I could have the card so I could like go and do anything. Like I remember trying to go to the movies with my friends.
There's that communism again.
Yeah.
Force.
Yeah.
And if it was a real vaccine and it made the person who got it immune, you not having it would not be a threat to them. But they kept exposing the lie. It was just a flu shot. It didn't make anyone immune to anything, and it became a compliance thing, a power thing, a control thing. Again, communism, force.
Yep. Yeah, I think, yep. No, you're spot on with that. What I was saying was I remember going to the movie, trying to go to the movie with my friend, and they're like, oh, you need a vaccine card to come in. And I was like, that's unbelievable. And I think I think that's why I got it in the first place. So I was like, oh, I want to go hang out with my friends again, right? And like you said, yeah, and it's funny too because they call it liberalism, it's like left leaning, and liberal's supposed to mean freedom, but it doesn't even. It's not even correlated like that.
Yeah, Dennis Prager, talk show host, corrected me. I used to say you can lead a liberal to the facts, but you can't make them think. That shouldn't be the word liberal, because real classical liberals can be talked to and reasoned with, but an ultra ideologue, commie, fasci, soci leftist cannot be reasoned with. They're all about the feelings and their desire to have a sense of superiority over all others. So, and you said the vax card, you were extorted, you were coerced. Again, communism, force. It almost equates being a Catholic, anyone being a Christian. The Bibles talk of the mark of the beast, right? In order to do anything, you had to have that mark of the beast, that card. Did that connection, did that ever make the connection for you? Or was that, I could tell you got it at least subconsciously. Was it a conscious connection to you?
It's only a conscious thought now recently, because at the time it was like there's so much going on, you didn't really think about it. It was just like, just do it, get it over with. I think now it's like, and the rest of the world's waking up too. The rest of the world's like, yeah, that was stupid. Why did we do it like this? You know, people didn't need a shot in my arm. And like, I remember even getting that shot, and like I would get sick constantly after that too. Like I remember like every 2 months I would get sick, and just like I remember before I'd barely ever get sick. It's like it's almost like it was weakening me. That's kind of how it felt almost.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.
Yeah, and of course, a regular flu shot is usually fairly safe. The side effects are fairly benign. You know, pain at the shot, a slight fever maybe for a while as your body processes the dead cells of the virus to try to make you immune, but doesn't always work, as opposed to the Wuhan hysteria jabs, that the side effects far outweigh any benefit. I know all kinds of people now, perfectly healthy before the jab, now have heart problems.
Yeah. It's almost too much of a coincidence.
It's beyond the ability to be a coincidence. Yeah, that before them, this was the rate. After them, the rates doubled. The cause and effect is pretty clear, and studies are actually showing that now, even those who produce. And I like to make a distinction. I did, because our mother had dementia. So I got the Johnson & Johnson traditional shot, egg-based, dead cells, right? My sister, unfortunately, got one of the 2 mRNA experimental vaccine shots.
Oh, wow.
And indeed, guess what? Last month, she was in the hospital for heart surgery. Wow. Coincidence? I really don't think so. Because so many others I hear all of a sudden perfectly healthy, heart issues all of a sudden.
To go back to what we were originally talking about, that's really what changed kind of my whole thought process of how government just works in general. You know, before, when you're growing up, government's nobody really talks about it. Nobody wants to teach politics to really young kids. So, which is fine, because it's a very corrupt system. It's not something you want to really get your kids into until it starts affecting them more often. But that's kind of when I just started changing my mind, and just like, oh, what's our government doing? And then also just, I was born into thinking like the right, the conservatives, the traditionalists were always the bad guy. That's kind of what I grew up into, because again, I was born in Chicago. That's just how it was around here. So when I started watching my own videos, I guess doing my own research, I started realizing this is a two-sided story.
Yeah.
Even at a younger age too.
Yeah. And as the saying goes, this show is exactly the opposite. I'm no doubt you've heard the saying, don't talk about religion or politics. And the reason a lot of people say that is because they don't want anyone to understand anything about religion and politics, because then they can lead them around by the nose if they don't know anything. I can just tell you understand that now.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary to think because they want to take religion away from you, so you can start believing them
They
more. So it's
want
almost like they're the religion now. It's almost like you're believing in them.
That's exactly where I was going to go. You
Hmm.
read my mind. We are of the same. The left, again, not a classical liberal, but an ideological commie fasci soci, that
Yeah.
it's all about power and control. They want you to worship them as God. They want
Hmm.
government to be your religion and your God. And clearly, by your statement, you're waking up to that fact. You see that now.
I know it's almost saved my life to understand that. I mean, I started exercising more, and naturally, exercise is gonna get you. You're gonna. I think like as a man, I get more testosterone. I heard like if you have more testosterone, you're generally like right leaning. I heard that somewhere, but I just thought I'd mention that. But what I was saying was, it clears your mind more, and then at the same time, that's when I want to learn more. So that's when I started fixing my own body. I just felt naturally like, yeah, there's something wrong with this. This is different. And it's more of just, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracies, like the deep state I've heard is one of them, stuff like that. But it's just so interesting just how, and the more I see about stuff about this, the more I want to look into it and just see what's really going on. It seems like all the boring details are the ones that you really want to listen to, because that's where they don't want you to see. They keep it boring, so you don't
Look
want.
over here. Look over here. Don't look over there. Don't
Yeah,
look over
no,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, no, you said exactly. That's great. You're becoming more awake, not woke, more inquisitive, more curious about
mhm,
indeed what they're trying to hide.
yeah.
They want, have you heard the term bread and circus?
No, I'm not.
Okay, that comes from the Roman era. The
Okay.
Caesars thought that in order to keep the people happy and non rebellious, right, keep them fed just enough
Yeah.
to not want to revolt. That's the bread part. And circuses, the distractions. Again, look at that stuff that
Hmm.
doesn't really affect your life, so you're not paying attention to what they're doing to you behind your back that does really affect your life. Hence the phrase bread and circus about politics. So I am glad you are indeed paying attention and more inquisitive. And I think a lot of younger people now are. And like you said, the whole lockdown thing. I thought we were a free country,
Hmm.
but
Not
yet,
so free.
yeah.
Well, not
And
so free
so
after all.
I've rambled a bit more than I normally do when I have a guest on it, so I apologize. So
You're all good.
let me just turn over the floor to you.
Okay.
What's in your mind? What do you want to say? Where would you like to go? Putting
I
you on
don't
the spot again.
Honestly, your teacher, the bread and circus thing, that's really good to know. I feel like that's a good analogy. But what I was thinking of as soon as you said that was social media. I think social media is the biggest distraction anyone could
The
possibly get
biggest
into.
circus around.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean that's the easiest way to control any kind of free speech. Um, in fact, free speech was a big premise of the election this year. A lot of people were scared that, oh, you're gonna get shut down. Oh, Elon Musk bought Twitter, that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, the cancel culture
yeah.
bullshit.
Hmm.
Yes. It was
Yeah.
all about not honesty and reality. It was all about controlling speech
Yep.
so that they could sell propaganda and delusion,
Yep.
and taking your free speech right against speaking against it.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah, it's crazy how dangerous it's become for just people to want to be able to speak in general. I mean, I know there's certain words you can't say. I mean, the fact that you can even get banned on a social media platform is already just a violation of freedom of speech. I mean, yeah, there's hate speech, yeah, there's violent speech, but there's a difference in just like
Yeah.
what you should be able to say and what you can, and the fact that people can get banned. I mean, I don't know. I've always like wrestled in my head because I know there's certain things you should not. You just in a moral reasoning, you shouldn't be able to say like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill someone" or something like that. I'm like
Oh, that's a whole other thing, though. That
yeah,
threats are illegal, but
yeah,
hate speech, I'm glad you brought that up because the courts have ruled over and over that hate speech is protected speech. And frankly, I want neo-Nazi, racist, whatever morons to tell me what they think, then I know how to avoid their moronic selves, right? The answer to speech is more speech.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that for sure. And just debates too. I think a lot of people. I've been on podcasts before where people were like, "Oh, I don't want people to debate because they're just going to be arguing. It's going to be nonsense." I think, but just I always feel like debates were a good thing as long as it doesn't get it. It depends on the people. Like, there's some people that'll just yell at each other and just start insulting. It'll just become an insult fight. But if you keep it classy and you keep it reasonable, I think both people can come to a great consensus if they just work hard to make sure it's information based and not insult based. Um, I never thought that was, but I've heard that they've been trying to. I mean, even like after the debates that happened this year with the election, they're trying to change the way it is because it just seems like it's just both like yeah,
And that's what leftism, cancel culture is about, protecting their spin and propaganda from you being able to rebut it and indeed try to shut off discussion. And if you have no discussion, you have no learning, you have no moving forward, you're stuck. Those are, in my mind, the most stupid people on the planet. And there is a difference. We are all ignorant of things we've yet to learn. It's a choice to remain stupid.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, they show if you're able to start speaking about things that they don't want you to know, that also gives you a level of power too. And I've seen a lot of influencers that are become like a lot of people that just say things that to normal people it's like sounds absurd, but in a reality there is some truth to what they say. There's some conspiracies they say. I know there's a lot of people out there talking about like the Israel Gaza situation that there's like
all the anti-Semitism conspiracy nonsense. There are conspiracies. That's why we have RICO laws to lock up people who engage in actual criminal conspiracies. Right? So that's another thing, to shut people up and shut down discussion. If you say something they don't like, they want to label you a conspiracy theorist, right? That's another part of the cancel culture. And you said it perfectly. Power and control. They don't want you to be empowered. They want their power and control over how you speak, when you can speak, where you can speak, what you can say. It's power and control. They want it over you. And I am so happy to see not just you, but so many young people. I've got an article on Let the Left Keep Pushing. A generational shift is occurring because of it, because they so overreach and want their jackboot on your neck. It's natural that you would push back, yes?
Yeah. I will say I hear about that often, and honestly, just from what I've seen around me, I haven't really seen that much. I really haven't seen that many young people that have that same kind of curious mindset. In fact, usually when I mention politics, people are like, "Oh, just stop! Like, stop talking about it." It's so every time somebody says that, I'm like, I just don't see it. I'm always very interested. That's why I always wanted to talk to more people. That's why I always wanted to go on more podcasts like this to just see like when more people are saying that. I wouldn't necessarily say agree with me, but understand what's actually going on.
And you said it yourself, you've become more inquisitive now. your eyes were opened, so now you're more inquisitive. A lot of people of every generation, from Zoomers to Boomers, there are people who want, again, difference between ignorant and stupid. They want their delusional bubble. They like their delusional bubble. They get to coast through life conveniently in their bubble, and they don't want it challenged. Again, that's why cancel culture's there, to shut you up so they can keep their bubble.
Yeah, it's a comfortable life being in that bubble, and as soon as you start going into uncomfortable, life becomes completely different, completely changes.
Yeah, there's a reason there's the phrase, ignorance is bliss.
Bliss, yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't have to think. I don't want to think. I just want to go through life with my feelings. Oh my God, you hurt my feelings.
That's funny too, because they're always the ones, they're the people that are super comfortable,
tolerant.
But they're also the ones that talk the most. They're the ones you hear about the most everywhere.
Yeah. The ones that try to preach tolerance are the least tolerant.
Yep.
I'm no doubt, excuse me, had to clear my throat there.
Okay.
But in school, there's a reason they don't want history taught. They want people to be ignorant. Again, bred in circus, they can control you easier. But I'm sure you've heard about America's founding, e pluribus unum. Yes?
I cannot say I've heard of that.
No? Oh my God, exactly. Because history is not taught. America, a nation of legal migrants, e pluribus unum. That's Latin for from many one. We all have not completely abandoned our other cultures, but we borrow and learn from each other's cultures to create our own American unique culture. If I wear a sombrero, it's not cultural appropriation. It's paying homage to my Mexican friends.
I'm glad you mentioned school too. I think a lot of I actually had a class called Global Politics.
Which probably didn't cover much of it.
it was more of like philosophy. It was like realism, liberalism, constructivism, those kind of things. But I don't think that was really the most I honestly think my English class was more political, just talking, because
teachers wanting to indoctrinate you. Yes.
Yeah, like the books we were reading were super feminist. They were I remember one of the themes we had, and just like naturally, just as a man, one of the themes was male delusion, and I found that just like such an odd thing to talk about.
Yeah, the toxic masculinity idiocy, right? We were built that way for a reason. Now, being completely misogynistic all the time is,
of course,
it is a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing. That's not what we're talking about here. But indeed, they want to indoctrinate, rather, they want to teach you what to think rather than how to think for yourself.
For sure. Yeah. They gave it was like specific themes you would use for each book we'd read. It was less, I mean, obviously, like, you could come up with your own, but they would guide you towards the kind of things that they would want you to see. And I realized that myself. I remember that we had like a last essay, and it was just like reacting to your year, and I wrote like a letter to, you're supposed to like write a letter about some like theme or something we discussed in one of the books. I wrote like a letter to male delusion. I was like, oh, like how, like this is just such a weird concept. I don't even remember what I wrote, but it was just such a weird concept. And I don't know, it was just, and it's also like the structure of how you're supposed to write essays is very specific. They wanted you to do it this specific way. Make sure you have this paragraph, but in real life, that's not how it is.
Indoctrination, molding you to be one of their robots. And we're not robots, we're human. We are given free will and a brain to think with. It's a shame so many people refuse to use it.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, Xavier, thank you for coming by. The time has flown by, and I apologize for speaking so much, not letting you speak enough, in my opinion. But you triggered, not in an, oh my God, you hurt my feelings way, but you triggered responses and thoughts in me that it's like, I gotta say it again.
Yeah. No, I think I learned a couple things from you for sure. So I was glad you were talking for a little bit. So just young to be able to learn something.
Yeah.
Like that, so.
Well, you have not heard of E Pluribus Unum, so you need to check out my show about E Pluribus Unum from Many One versus the DEI bullshit, which is about separating and dividing, not bringing people together. You hadn't heard of Bread and Circus. I've got 2 shows on that. I hope you'll tune in for those.
Awesome.
And get your friends to tune into all these, because again, there's a reason why people don't want you taught these things.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you for stopping by. Take care and God bless.
Of course. You too. Have a great one.
Thank you for having tuned in for Constitutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help.
Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM is your conservative flamethrower. Weekdays, Steve Gruber starts things off at 6 a.m. Gruber gives his perspective on the issues of the day. At 9 a.m., Glenn Beck blazes the airwaves with his nationally syndicated program. From noon to 3, it's Dennis Prager. At 3 o'clock, it's Wham's own Thayrone X. On the Edge, Thayrone tells it exactly as he sees it. At 6, it's The Dana Show, your conservative alternative. At 8, don't miss Joe Pags. Weekends are filled with conservative talk as well. Fingers Malloy, Thomas LeDuc, The Abolitionists Roundtable, A Moment of Clarity with Pastor Rick, Your American Heritage with Ed Bondarenka, Dave Janda's Operation Freedom, and Dick Kupke's Trigger Talk. You can even get links to Wham podcasts from Dave, Dick, and of course Thayrone, all from their pages on our website, whamradio.com. Keep it locked on Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM in southeastern Michigan, and whamradio.com anywhere in the world.